The silence that spoke louder than anything. Ana de Armas sat at the far end of the table. The lights above were too bright. The makeup on her face felt too heavy. On the voices around her, though full of laughter and confidence, made her feel like she was underwater. It was supposed to be a celebration, a press dinner after their latest film's big announcement. The movie was already being called a masterpiece. Critics had written glowing previews, but Ana didn't feel like celebrating. Not tonight. She kept her smile small, polite, not fake, but not full either. She had learned that in this industry. Especially as a woman with an accent, one had to measure everything, every laugh, every glance, every pause. Keanu Reeves was seated beside her, calm as always. He had a way of existing in a room without needing to control it. People respected that he never tried too hard, didn't speak just to be heard. That's what Ana had always admired about him. And that's what made tonight so different. It's because something was about to happen. Something that would test both of them, and only one would rise with quiet fire. The table was long, full of producers, directors, and industry insiders. Some faces she barely knew, others she had worked with before. They all seemed to float in their own bubbles of self-importance. Wine flowed, stories were exaggerated, and somewhere between the third toast and the fake laughter, someone made a comment. His name was Bradley. He had a small role in the movie, barely 3 scenes, but he walked around like the director himself. He was loud, sarcastic, and never missed a chance to turn attention back to himself. "So Ana," he said loudly, his voice slicing, "through the chatter, do you actually understand the lines you're saying, or do you just memorize them phonetically?" The table fell silent. A few people laughed nervously, unsure if they should. Others looked down into their plates. The kind of silence that made time stretch and hearts freeze. Ana didn't move. For a split second, she thought maybe she had misheard. Maybe he had said something else. Something not so cruel. But the smile on his face, that smirk full of cheap confidence, told her otherwise. Her fingers tightened around the base of her glass, not enough to show, just enough to feel it. She looked at him. Her eyes didn't show anger. They showed something more dangerous. Pain. But before she could say anything, Keanu Reeves stood up. He didn't say a word. He didn't point. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't glance at Bradley. He just stood, slowly, calmly, and placed his cloth napkin down on the table. The entire room shifted, because when someone like Keanu Reeves stands up without a word, people notice. People feel it. Ana looked up at him, surprised. He met her eyes, not with pity, but with solidarity. With quiet strength, Bradley laughed nervously. "Hey, come on, I was just joking," he said, trying to shrink the moment. But Keanu didn't laugh, simply looked at Bradley for one long second. Not with hate, not with disgust. Just with that same silence. The kind that stripped away all bravado. Then, without saying anything, he walked around the table, gently reached for Ana's chair, and held out his hand. She hesitated, but only for a moment. Then she placed her hand in his, and together, they walked out of the room.
Ow.
Nobody said a word. The door closed behind them. Outside, in the hallway lit with soft golden lights, Ana finally exhaled. "Thank you," she whispered. Keanu shook his head gently. "You don't need to thank me." They kept walking, the sound of their footsteps soft against the marble floor. Neither of them looked back, because they both knew that moment had changed something, not just between them, but inside Ana. **** Later that night, Ana sat alone in her hotel room, the lights dimmed, the noise of the evening long gone. She held her phone in her hands, staring at a photo taken weeks ago, a still from the film where her character stood strong, defiant, unbroken. That night, she had felt nothing like that. But now, now, something was different. She opened her notebook, the one she never let anyone see. It wasn't for scripts. It wasn't for planning. It was for moments like this. She wrote, "He didn't fight for me. He didn't argue. He just stood." And somehow, that was more powerful than all the noise in the world. Ana closed the book and held it to her chest. Outside her window, the city moved like it always did, loud, fast, unforgiving. But inside, For the first time in a long while, she felt still. She felt seen. What she didn't know was that this was only the beginning. The world had seen a glimpse of the truth, a truth that would soon ripple far beyond one dinner table. Because one silent act of respect can carry farther than 1,000 loud apologies. And what happens next would test them both in ways they never imagined. Ending line, and that was the night everything quietly began to change, without a single word spoken. You said, "Now write part 2, ChatGPT said. Title, someone mocked Anna. Keanu stood up without a word. Part 2, the interview that lit the fire. The morning after the dinner, everything seemed normal on the surface. Sunlight poured into Anna's hotel room, soft and warm, brushing across the pale sheets and half-empty teacup on the side table. But inside she felt something building, a quiet ache mixed with something sharper. Not anger, not shame, but a need to breathe deeper, to step into something she had avoided for years. She scrolled through her phone as she sipped tea. News hadn't caught it, not yet. The media still buzzed with praise for the film and photos from the night before. There was no mention of the moment she and Keanu had walked out, no mention of the silence that froze the room, but something in her heart told her that silence had been heard. Her phone buzzed with a message from her publicist. "Your morning interview got moved up, 10:15. They'll send a car. Keep it light," they said. Anna sighed. These interviews always ask the same questions. Favorite scenes? Hardest moments? Was it working with Keanu Reeves? But today, she didn't feel like smiling for the same old questions. Keanu, on the other hand, sat quietly in the cafe downstairs. He liked to eat alone when he could, not because he didn't enjoy company, but because quiet spaces gave him time to think. He wasn't on the press schedule today. He'd made that clear. He didn't want to talk. Not yet. He stirred his coffee slowly, his mind replaying the moment from last night. Bradley's words. The pause in Anna's breath, the way her fingers curled tightly around her glass. The deep silence that followed. And then ... the walk. He hadn't planned it. He never did. He just knew, in that moment, that sitting still would have been the wrong choice. But he also knew Hollywood. And Hollywood had a way of forgetting moments like that, unless someone lit the fire. Asterisk, the interview started simple, just like Anna expected. The room was bright, with soft lights and clean colors. The interviewer, a woman named Leela, had a rehearsed smile and notes in her hand. "Anna," she began. "Congratulations again on the film. The early response is already amazing. How does it feel?" Anna smiled, but this time it was a real smile. Tired, but real. "It feels strange," she said honestly. "Sometimes the world sees your light, but not your shadows. And that can be very lonely." Leela blinked, a little thrown by the depth of the answer. "You mean emotionally or professionally?" Anna paused. She could have pulled back, redirected, made it safe. And instead, she leaned forward, fingers gently pressed together. "Last night," she said softly, "someone made a joke about the way I speak. The way I learned English? And it wasn't the first time. Probably won't be the last." Lila froze. The camera operator looked up. Anna continued, her voice steady but low. "But someone very kind, stood up for me."
What with?
Words just by standing. In that moment, it reminded me that silence, when it comes from a place of strength, can change the room. A long pause followed. Lila sat back. "Are you talking about Keanu?" Mana smiled again, this time gently. "He won't want credit, but yes." Lila nodded slowly, her tone shifting. "Did that moment change anything for you?" Anna looked at the camera now, not at Lila, not at the room, but through the lens, straight to the people watching. "Changed everything," she whispered. Asterisk within hours. That interview was clipped and shared online. People didn't scroll past. They stopped. They watched. Then they reacted. The comments came in waves. "Why does this still happen in 2025? Keanu Reeves is a class act. This is how you stand up for someone without turning it into a show. I've felt that pain too." "Anna, you're not alone." Hashtag Anna deserves respect started trending. And just like that, the silence that had fallen over that dinner table was now a storm of voices. Keanu saw the clip that evening. He didn't say anything at first, just sat on the edge of his hotel bed, the soft glow of the screen lighting his face. He watched her speak, her honesty, her quiet strength. And when she said it changed everything, he closed his eyes for a moment. He had always believed in letting actions speak louder, but now her voice had become the action. And he knew something else, something deeper. She wasn't just speaking for herself anymore. Meanwhile, Bradley was panicking. His phone had been ringing nonstop. His agent called. The studio called. His face was being tagged in screenshots across Twitter, though no one had used his name yet. But it was coming. He opened Instagram, only to see a fan-made drawing already going viral. Ana de Armas, sitting tall in a chair, a shadowy crowd. Behind her, and Keanu Reeves standing in front of her, arms folded, protecting her with nothing but pre-sync. The interview that lit the Ferretti morning after the dinner. Everything seemed normal on the surface. Sunlight poured into Anna's hotel room, soft and warm, brushing across the pale sheets and half-empty teacup on the side table. But inside, she felt something building, a quiet ache mixed with something sharper. Not anger, not shame, but a need to breathe deeper. To step into something she had avoided for years. She scrolled through her phone as she sipped tea. The news hadn't caught it. Not yet. The media still buzzed with praise for the film and photos from the night before. There was no mention of the moment she and Keanu had walked out. No mention of the silence that froze the room, but something in her heart told her that silence had been heard. Her phone buzzed with a message from her publicist. Your morning interview got moved up 10:15. They'll send a car. Keep it light, they said. Anna sighed. These interviews always asked. The same questions? Favorite scenes? Hardest moments? How was it working with Keanu Reeves? But today, she didn't feel like smiling for the same old questions. Keanu, on the other hand, sat quietly in the cafe downstairs. He liked to eat alone when he could, not because he didn't enjoy company, but because quiet spaces gave him time to think. He wasn't on the press schedule today. He had made that clear. He didn't want to talk, not yet. He stirred his coffee slowly, his mind replaying the moment from last night. Bradley's words. The pause in Anna's breath, the way her fingers curled tightly around her glass, the deep silence that followed. And then, the walk. He hadn't planned it. He never did. Just knew, in that moment, that sitting still would have been the wrong choice. But he also knew Hollywood, and Hollywood had a way of forgetting moments like that, unless someone lit the fire. The interview started simple, just like Anna expected. The room was bright with soft lights and clean colors. The interviewer, a woman named Leela, had a rehearsed smile and notes in her hand. Anna, she began, congratulations again on the film. The early response is already amazing. How does it feel? Anna smiled, but this time it was a real smile. Tired, but real. It feels strange, she said honestly. Sometimes the world sees your light, but not your shadows. And that can be very lonely. Leela blinked, a little thrown by the depth of the answer, you mean? Emotionally or professionally? Anna paused. She could have pulled back, redirected, made it safe, but instead she leaned forward, fingers gently pressed together. Last night, she said softly, someone made a joke about the way I speak, the way I learned English. And it wasn't the first time. It probably won't be the last. Leela froze. The camera operator looked up. Anna continued, her voice steady but low. But someone very kind, stood up for me, not with words, just by standing. And that moment. It reminded me that silence, when it comes from a place of strength, can change the room. A long pause followed. Leela sat back. Are you talking about Keanu? Anna smiled again, this time gently. You won't want credit, but yes, Lila nodded slowly, her tone shifting. Did that moment change anything for you? Anna looked at the camera now, not at Lila, not at the room, but through the lens, straight to the people watching. It changed everything, she whispered. Asterisk asterisk within hours. That interview was clipped and shared online. People didn't scroll past. They stopped. They watched. And then they reacted. The comments came in waves. Why does this still happen in 2025? Keanu Reeves is a class act. This is how you stand up for someone without turning it into a show. I've felt that pain too. Anna, you're not alone. Hashtag Anna deserves respect started trending, and just like that, the silence that had fallen over that dinner table was now a storm of voices. Asterisk, asterisk, Keanu saw the clip that evening. He didn't say anything at first, just sat on the edge of his hotel bed, the soft glow of the screen lighting his face. He watched her speak. Her honesty, her quiet strength. And when she said it changed everything. He closed his eyes for a moment. He had always believed in letting actions speak louder. But now, her voice had become the action. And he knew something else. Something deeper. She wasn't just speaking for herself anymore. Asterisk, asterisk, meanwhile. Bradley was panicking. His phone had been ringing nonstop. His agent called, the studio called, his face was being tagged in screenshots across Twitter, though no one had used his name yet. But it was coming. He opened Instagram. Okay, only to see a fan-made drawing already going viral. Ana de Armas sitting tall in a chair, a shadowy crowd behind her. Keanu Reeves standing in front of her, arms folded, protecting her with nothing but presence. The caption read, "The man who didn't have to speak, because his soul did." Bradley's fingers shook as he turned off his phone. Asterisk, asterisk, the studio issued a soft statement the next day. Carefully avoiding names, we believe in creating respectful, inclusive environments for all artists. But the fans weren't letting this fade. They asked for accountability, asked for change. But more importantly, they rallied behind Anna for the first time in her career. Anna felt something she hadn't always been given in Hollywood. Public protection, not as a token, not as a trend, but as a woman who had stayed quiet for too long and now had the world listening. Asterisk, asterisk, that evening. Keanu knocked on her door. When she opened it, he had no script, no speech, no apology, just 2 coffees. And a quiet look. You didn't have to say all that, he said. Anna smiled. And you didn't have to stand. He sat on the floor, backs against the wall, sharing coffee in silence. But this time, silence didn't hurt. It healed, because now it was filled with truth, and the truth was only just beginning to rise. The echoes that couldn't be silenced days that followed were not quiet. They were full of noise. Not the hurtful kind, but the kind that rises when people start caring, start remembering, and finally start speaking up. Anna's name was everywhere. Not for her looks, not for the red carpet, not even for her new film, but for her truth. For her voice, what started as one soft moment, one honest answer in a calm interview, had grown into something much bigger. Young actors began sharing their stories. Stories of being laughed at during auditions. Stories of being told to lose the accent, hide the roots, bleach the truth. Hashtags turned into headlines. Keanu watched it all happen from the sidelines. He had no public statement, no tweet, no interview. But his silence wasn't the same as being absent. He was there in every sketch, every quote, every retelling of that dinner moment, because people remembered what he had done. He hadn't shouted. He hadn't fought. He had simply stood. And sometimes that's enough to make the world listen. Asterisk, asterisk, Anna stood backstage at a small community center event in Echo Park. She had been invited to speak to a group of young Latina actresses. The room wasn't glamorous. The lights flickered. The floor creaked. But the energy inside, it was real. She held the mic tightly. Not from fear, but from care. I used to think I had to prove myself by hiding parts of who I was. She told them, her voice warm and steady. But now I understand your voice is not something you fix. It's something you protect. They clapped, not politely, but fully. Some had tears in their eyes. Anna smiled and stepped down. Walking slowly through the crowd, outside, Keanu waited near the exit, wearing his usual black coat and soft patience. When she reached him, he looked at her and said one simple thing, "You." Spoke like a lighthouse, she laughed softly. Lighthouse, he nodded, quiet, strong, and it helped others find direction. Asterisk, asterisk, but not everyone liked what was happening inside a boardroom high above the city. Bradley sat across from two studio executives and a lawyer. "You need to apologize," one of them said now, directly, publicly, "before it gets worse." Bradley's jaw was tight. "I was joking. Everyone jokes. Now suddenly I'm the villain." The older executive didn't blink. "You're not the villain because you joked. You're the villain because you didn't stop, because you didn't think, because you never asked if the room was laughing with her or at her." The words hit harder than Bradley expected. He sat still for a moment, quiet, but not the kind of quiet Keanu had shown. This one was hollow, weak. Finally he nodded. Asterisk, asterisk, Anna received the email that evening. Subject, apology. From Bradley.h. She stared at it for a while before opening it. It wasn't long, it wasn't poetic, but it was honest. He didn't make excuses. He didn't try to sound clever. He just said, "I was wrong. I hurt you, even if I didn't mean to. I understand now, and I'm sorry, truly. Thank you for your strength." Anna exhaled slowly. She didn't reply right away. She wasn't sure she would. Sometimes healing didn't mean conversation. It meant release. She closed the email and looked out the window. The city glowing beneath the stars. Keanu was right. She felt like a lighthouse, not because she had all the answers, but because she had chosen not to dim her light. Asterisk, asterisk, the next morning, Anna arrived at the studio lot for a reshoot scene. Atmosphere was different, warmer. People smiled more gently. They greeted her with more care, not just out of guilt, but out of recognition. It was as if they finally saw her between takes. A young crew member approached her. "Miss Anna," he said softly, "I just wanted to say, my sister hasn't accent too. She saw your video," she cried. "She said you made her feel less alone." Anna's heart softened. She touched the young man's shoulder gently. "Tell her. I cried too." Asterisk, asterisk, later that day, while sitting beside Keanu during a quiet lunch break. She asked him something she had been wondering since that night. "Why did you stand?" He didn't answer right away. He sipped his coffee, then looked at her with a calm. "That held years of stories, because I've seen too many people stay seated when they should have stood. And I promised myself I wouldn't be one of them." Anna nodded. Words wrapped around her heart like a soft thread, holding it gently together. Asterisk, asterisk, meanwhile, fans started a fundraiser for a scholarship in Anna's name for young actors. From underrepresented communities, especially those struggling with language barriers in Hollywood, Anna hadn't planned it, hadn't asked for it, but she supported it quietly. Because this was never about attention, it was about action. And every small act added to the wave that was now crashing down on an industry that had stayed too silent. For too long, asterisk, asterisk, but Hollywood has a short memory, and Anna knew the real test was coming. Not just in headlines or tweets, but in the next audition room, the next casting call.
The next time someone like her walked into a space full of smiles that hid judgment.
Would they still listen? Would they still see? Asterisk, asterisk, Anna sat alone that night, scribbling in her notebook again. The world didn't change overnight, but something did. I think I did. She looked out at the stars, wondered who else out there needed someone to stand for them, and silently promised herself next time she would be the one to rise first. The audition that changed everything a month had passed. The storm had settled. But not in the way most storms fade. This one didn't disappear. It planted seeds, and now those seeds were starting to bloom. Anna was no longer just seen as the beautiful actress with an accent. She was something more now, a voice, a symbol, a reminder. But with that came a pressure she hadn't expected. It was a quiet afternoon when her agent called. "There's a role," he said. "Big one, lead, Real drama. They asked for you by name. Anna raised her eyebrows. What's the catch? He hesitated. It's different. New director. New studio. And the audition will be in person. Full read. No favors. No shortcuts. Nodded slowly. Then let's go. Asterisk, asterisk. The casting building was nothing special. Gray walls. Cold floors. It's a smell of stale coffee in the corners. Anna walked in wearing a plain sweater and jeans. No makeup, no entourage, just her. She checked in. At the front, sat down on the thin couch, and waited around her. Younger actresses whispered to each other. Most were nervous. Some stared at her, unsure if they should speak. A few smiled. One even mouthed the words thank you. Anna gave a soft nod back. Asterisk, asterisk inside the audition room. The director sat with two producers. A camera operator stood in the corner, adjusting the lens. Scripts were scattered across the table. Anna entered. They looked up. No fake greetings. No flattery. The director simply said, "Whenever you're ready." Anna opened the script. The role was of a woman who had lost everything: voice, confidence, connection, and was slowly finding her way back. She didn't act the scene. She lived it. Because she knew what it felt like to be silent. Overlooked, pushed aside, and then, slowly, to rise. Her voice trembled, but not from fear, from truth, when the scene ended. The room stayed still. No one clapped, but no one spoke either. Finally, the director leaned back and said, "I don't need to see anyone else." Asterisk, asterisk, Anna walked out of the building into the sunlight. Her breath caught somewhere between her chest and her throat. She didn't cry, but something inside her felt lighter, like a door she had been leaning on for years had finally opened. Asterisk, asterisk later. That night she met Keanu at a quiet rooftop cafe. He had been out of town, filming a small side project, a documentary about silence in nature. Somehow that felt right. He looked at her across the table. The sky behind them turning from gold to deep blue. "How was the audition?" he asked. She smiled slowly. "I didn't perform," she said. "I just showed them who I was." He nodded once. "And that's more than enough." Asterisk, asterisk, a week later. The announcement came out: Ana de Armas to lead new emotional drama. Director says her truth left the room speechless. The article trended instantly, but what caught attention even more was what happened at the film's first production meeting. Anna was sitting at the table with the cast and crew, listening to introductions. When a new assistant director made a comment, he was trying to be funny. Maybe even trying to impress. He laughed and said, "So Anna, will you be needing a translator for the more complex lines?" The room stiffened. Anna didn't move, but this time, someone else stood up. A young actor, no one famous, pushed his chair back gently. He didn't say anything either. He just looked at the assistant director, held that gaze, and the joke died right there. Anna looked at the young actor. He nodded to her, and for the first time, Anna saw what Keanu had seen weeks before, the ripple effect of standing up. Because once someone breaks the silence, others remember how to do it too. Asterisk, asterisk, Keanu sent her a photo later that day. It was a drawing someone posted online. In it, a row of people stood in a line. The first was Keanu. The next was Anna. Then another person. Then another. Underneath it read, "When one rises, others remember how." Anna stared at the image for a long time. She didn't respond right away. Instead, she picked up her notebook and wrote, "I am no longer afraid of being misunderstood, because those who need to understand, already do." Asterisk, asterisk, but Hollywood, for all its sudden kindness, still had shadows. One night, Anna was invited to a gala honoring rising voices in cinema. She arrived late, walking in quietly, wearing a simple, black dress. As she stepped into the hall, she heard a group of older producers talking near the bar. They didn't see her, one of them said. "These days, all it takes is a bit of crying on camera to become a hero," another added. And if Keanu's with you, well, you're untouchable. They laughed. Anna froze. For a moment, old feelings came rushing back. Doubt. Shame. The need to run. But this time she didn't shrink. She walked straight past them. Den single quotes. Say a word, but stood at the edge of the stage, waiting for her name to be called. When it was, the room applauded. She took the mic, looked out at the crowd, said, I don't need to raise my voice to be heard. I just need to speak from where it matters. The room went quiet because everyone, including the ones by the bar, knew exactly who she was talking to. Keanu watched from the back. He didn't clap first, but he clapped loudest. Because this was no longer about just defending Anna. It was about watching her rise, not in his shadow, but in her own light. The stage, the shadow, and the truth Ana de Armas stood behind the heavy black curtain. The sound of 1,000 voices echoing beyond it. Lights flashed on the other side, bright and blinding. Her heart beat slow and steady, not from fear, but from something deeper. She had been invited to give the opening speech at the International Actors Guild Summit, an honor few had received before her, and never someone who had once been laughed at for the way she spoke. But now they wanted her voice, not softened, not corrected, just her, and that ... was everything. Backstage. Keanu stood quietly by the wall. He wasn't scheduled to speak. He hadn't asked to be here. But she had called him 2 days earlier and simply said, Will you be there? He had replied, Always. Now he stood, with his hands in his pockets, watching her from a few feet away. You nervous? He asked gently. Anna turned toward him. Her eyes were clear, focused, not nervous. She said, just ... aware. Of what? Of how far I've come? Of how easy it would have been to stay small. Keanu nodded slowly. But you didn't. Anna looked toward the curtain. Because you didn't. The host announced her name. The curtain pulled back. Anna stepped onto the stage. The applause was thunderous, respectful, real. She stood at the podium, not with perfect posture or practiced charm, but with truth. She took a breath and began. I was once told that I should work harder to lose my accent, she said. That it made me sound less intelligent, less believable, less castable. The room went still. I was told I'd be lucky to even be noticed, and even luckier if I was never mocked. She looked up now, scanning the crowd, but I'm not. Lucky because I survived those words. I'm standing here today because one person, just one, stood up for me when no one else did. And it wasn't to become a hero. It wasn't for attention, it was because it was right. A few people already had tears in their eyes, and that moment taught me something. Kindness is not a small thing. Sometimes it's the most powerful thing in the world, because it creates more kindness. She paused, then added, So to those who feel invisible, different, or unwanted, don't shrink. The world doesn't need you to fit in. It needs you to stand out. The applause came again, this time louder. People rose to their feet. Keanu stayed backstage. He didn't come out. He didn't wave. He didn't need to. He just stood in the shadows, exactly where he had been when he first showed her what quiet strength looked like. After the event. They rode in the same black car, quiet as the city blurred outside. Anna finally broke the silence. You know what scares me sometimes? She asked. What? That people will forget this. Move on. Go back to the way things were. Keanu looked out the window, then turned to her. Some will, he said honestly, but not everyone. You lit something. What? The people who felt seen. They won't forget. Anna thought for a while, then nodded. Hope they light something too. But not everyone wanted the light. The next morning, a popular entertainment podcast dropped an episode with the title, Is Ana de Armas really a hero? Or just Hollywood's new favorite story? In it, two hosts debated whether her story was too polished, whether she had played the victim. And if Kiana's silent act was just a publicity, moved Atna heard about it from her assistant. She didn't listen to it, but her eyes darkened. Not with anger, but with knowing. She walked into her kitchen, made tea, and sat by the window, writing in her notebook. They can debate my story. They can question my voice. But they can't change what was felt. Not by me. Not by those who were watching. Asterisk, meanwhile. Something unexpected was happening. The young actor who stood up for Anna in the production meeting, his name was Malik, had gone viral after someone posted a clip of him defending a new crew member who had been mocked for their accent on set. Malik didn't know he was being filmed. He had just done what felt right, and now the world saw it. When asked later why he did it, Malik simply said, "Because someone once stood up for Anna, and Anna made me believe I could do the same." The ripple had become a wave. Keanu and Anna met again a few days later. They sat on a bench overlooking the water. No cameras, no crowds, just wind, light, and silence. Anna turned to him. She said, "You've barely spoken through all of this." Keanu smiled. "I didn't need to. You did enough." Anna looked down, her fingers resting in her lap. "Do you ever wonder if kindness is enough?" she whispered. "If it can really survive in a place like this?" Keanu didn't answer right away. Then he looked at her and said something she would never forget. "Kindness doesn't need to win, just needs to exist, so others remember it's possible." Anna returned home that evening and found a package at her door. No name inside. It was a framed photograph. It was a still from that night, the dinner. The moment she looked up in shock as Keanu quietly stood beside her, she stared at it for a long time, then hung it by the door. Not to remember the pain, but to remember the rise. The headlines would fade. The cameras would move on. But what remained was the truth behind the silence. What remained was her strength, not given to her by anyone, but awakened by someone brave enough to believe she already had it. The quiet Legacythe movie wrapped in late summer. Anna stood alone on the final day of filming. In front of the empty soundstage, the crew had packed up. The lights were off. And yet she stayed a little longer, listening to the stillness, the kind that no longer scared. This wasn't just the end of a film. It was the end of a chapter, and the beginning of something far more lasting. The new film's trailer dropped 2 weeks later. It wasn't flashy. It didn't lead with explosions or drama. It opened with a single shot: Anna, sitting on a park bench, her eyes full of unshed tears, whispering a single line: "They never had to love me. They just had to let me speak." The internet broke open again. Comments poured in. This gave me chills. I've never felt more seen. This is why we need actors like her. Not afraid, not polished, just honest. Anna's name rose again, but this time not as a symbol, as an artist, as a voice, as herself. The premiere came quietly. No walked the carpet in a soft cream dress, simple and elegant. Keanu stood beside her, not as the spotlight, but as the silent thread that had helped weave this new story. Reporters asked her all kinds of questions about the film. "The character," the message. One asked. "Do you think you've changed Hollywood?" Anna paused, then said, "No. I think Hollywood is finally listening to the people who were always here. I just reminded them where to look." Inside the theater, the audience sat in silence during the film's final scene. Anna's character alone in a quiet cafe, eyes brimming, speaking softly in her native language. No subtitles, was raw and unfiltered, and the screen faded to black. No one clapped. Right away, they didn't want to break the moment then. The applause came. Not loud, not wild, but deep. From the chest, from the heart. After the premiere, Anna found a quiet corner outside, away from the noise. Keanu joined her, holding 2 small cups of tea he picked up from a nearby vendor. They sat on the curb, their clothes too formal for the concrete. Anna smiled. "You remember when all this started?" Keanu nodded. "A dinner, cruel comment, and a quiet stand." She looked up at the stars. It feels like a lifetime ago. Keanu sipped his tea. It wasn't the comment that changed things. It was what you did after. Anna turned to him, her eyes soft. And what you did during, he shook his head gently. I just stood. And that's exactly what I needed, she whispered. Asterisk, asterisk, months passed. The film won awards. But more importantly, it changed conversations agents started. Asking different questions. Casting directors looked at actors differently. Younger performers felt a little less afraid. And across the industry, people began to understand that silence, when used with care, can protect, can lift. Can lead asterisk, asterisk. Anna received a letter handwritten from a girl in Mexico City. She was 12. In the letter, she wrote, They say my voice is strange. They laugh sometimes when I try to speak in English. But now I see videos of you. I think maybe I don't need to sound like them. Maybe it's okay to sound like me. Anna read it 3 times, then folded it gently and placed it in her notebook. The same notebook she had written in since the night Keanu stood up. Asterisk, asterisk. One day, Keanu called her. Not for an event, not for a shoot, just for a walk. They met at a quiet hill overlooking the city. The air was cool, the sky wide. Anna asked, What do you think people will remember about all this? Keanu looked out over the skyline. Not the awards, he said. Not the speeches, not the headlines. They'll remember how it felt. Anna closed her eyes, let the breeze run through her hair, and smiled. Because she finally knew, she had done more than reclaim her voice. She had helped others find theirs. Asterisk, asterisk, and long after the spotlight moved on. After the cameras stopped flashing, the story still lived in classrooms, in auditions, in whispered encouragement, in quiet bravery, because one man stood in silence, and one woman chose not to sit back down.